Welcome to Dark Sorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have with me once again the one and only Guion Hughes.
Hey.
Guion, always good to spend time with you and chat with you.
Likewise.
Likewise, and yeah, and so the topic we have today is called study habits, and as magicians, as occultists, study is a big part of our life. But there's different aspects of the way we go about it. Isn't that right?
Yeah. I mean, I've been really into like developing different study ideas and using other methods of like the scientific method and different things that people use processes to get information and get to the bottom of things. I think nowadays it's really important to study and research also because it's like with social media, some people can just post something and then like they just go by that without researching it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as like going, without researching this stuff, I mean, like take for instance, we have books nowadays, and then we have videos online. Now, back in the day before YouTube, you would just like read books, and that was pretty much it. Get in touch with some other of your buddies who kind of were into the same thing, kind of exchange information. But nowadays the platform has kind of changed. I mean, now you have YouTube videos, and depending on how the person presents information in the videos, you can pick up either less or just as much information from a book by watching a video. Like I said, depending on how they present it. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, well, definitely people are processors, and if they can process several books into one main idea. And I mean, I think when it comes to if you're looking at magic, or I mean, the main thing is results, and not just with magic, but with psychology or whatever technology, we're looking at what results we're getting, And I mean, so that's the bottom line thing. But it's good to research to see what people did before and what they did in the past, what they're doing in the future, maybe, possibly with merging technology and magic as we get our results, things like that, but online is really important to see just reviews of books too. People will just tell you, that just break it down, like put it down just to the table of contents, a visual field of what's going on. Sometimes I'll listen to videos and make my own mind map. They're called. This is kind of an example. I got a book today.
Yeah, let's take a look at that diagram.
So this diagram is actually going for the scientific method, which is there's several different ones, and they teach them different depending on like if you're a physicist or a biologist, or so they have different ones. The first one here is observation. Goes to a question, so we observe things. We're like questioning. I would say this is in magic. We would also even go further than the question to say intention, like what do I want? Instead of just what the question is. It could be just a question of getting more of a philosophy or higher self or whatever, just ascending, high magic type stuff, or it could be a question of how can I get more money, right? So it could be, these questions. Then you research like we're saying. You could watch videos, you could, listen to different audio books. There's all kinds of sources online and offline. This book I just got. It's for younger people. It's called How Science Works. It's kind of for younger people. I'm getting it for some younger people, but I was reading it first so I could make sure to teach the kids like how I'm getting this, because I like to teach people in my family. So after research, you formulate a hypothesis. So like that's kind of like you have an idea of how things might work for you to get these results you want. That's how I would look at it in a more magical context, as far as this. Develop testable predictions. We do these things, see what we get. We always are going to get something. Even getting nothing is something, right? So the results are like that. Gather experimental data, analyze data. All this stuff is like, it's more personal, I think, when we're doing magic, because this is like actually like in a lab situation, like if they're actually testing with lab rats or chemicals, or seeing what they're testing for different things. But it goes all the way to, but do you believe that? Did you get the results you want or the results you didn't want? And then adjusting your expectations or your ideas on that,
One good thing about getting the results you didn't want is that in magic, especially, even if you don't get what you were looking for in the first place, it can take you down a whole different rabbit hole, and then make whole new discoveries. you know, like, oh, okay, well now I'm into this direction, and I wouldn't never happened if everything went all good here, you know.
Yeah.
So then
Yeah.
it brings you up to a whole new world of possibilities.
Yeah,
You
well,
know?
I mean, and people would argue, you know, more that we're here to not get the good results all the time, you know, because I mean that's I mean that's what life is, you know. I mean, on a long enough timeline, everybody gets, you know, suffers, everybody dies, everybody gets hurt, you know. I mean, you know, nobody gets out of here alive, nobody gets out of here unscathed, you know. You know, I mean, you know, hopefully not too bad, but it's just,
Yeah.
you know, we're here to learn the hard lessons, I think,
Well,
you know.
well, back to the what we were talking about before, where it was like books versus videos, you know, is that um so everybody learns differently, you know. Take for instance, not everybody learns the same. So remember, there was always that kid in class, how, you know, if you're taking a test, that kid's like done like really quick, you know, and some people in class are able to retain information a lot faster, whereas you may be struggling behind and take more time, but then you'll be faster in other areas. So, you know, in a way, yes, it does change the playing field, and it doesn't, depending how you look at it, with books and videos. If you're going to look at it through that lens, would you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it also depends on yeah, like you said, different people learn differently. Some people are visual learners more, like if they can mind map things, and then you could do that yourself. You know, you could listen to a video of somebody who's breaking down the things and mind map it. You know, like put your own like diagrams on how you see it. You know, you could assign it also to like these like ancient, which I would say were ancient operating systems, kind of like the tree of life. You know, you could say, you know, this has this Venus energy, this has, I mean, you know, you could assign the planets, you know, all these things have different, they're just kind
Good
of like
idea.
before operating systems, we had like these diagrams, and you see them in these occult books, you know,
Uh,
and they're just actually, you know, these symbols. It's like nowadays we do mathematics, or we have the unknowing like equations that are driving our phones and stuff, you know. And in
yeah.
the old days, you know, they had all this stuff, you know, this which is like that's also a way to like say, well, this
Well,
is the complicated stuff. So here's why I'm giving. This is the results I'm getting. You know, like this is why I have a powerful
you
talisman,
know,
because you
you
can't
bring up a
understand
good
that.
point,
Yeah.
because you could time your study depending on what planets, you know, are passing through at the time, depending on different celestial events.
Oh
Just
yeah,
think
yeah,
about it,
yeah.
you know, you're influenced by, you know, different planetary movements, you know, and different celestial activity, you know. Whereas one night you'd be able to pick up a little more if this planet was, you know, passing by, whereas, you know, another night where the celestial events were different, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know that reminds me of a thing that I've used as a definition of magic instead of the famous like Aleister Crowley one or anything. Uh, they had one in this book Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. I read, and he said the way they put it, I'm paraphrasing though, is he said, you know, to do magic. He says this is what fools call magic. Basically, he says you have to just know how to think, how to wait, and how to fast. You know. And so at the time I thought that doesn't sound that, you know, that much. But then if you expand those ideas out, you know, like the thought, that's like everything, you know, like the intention, it's everything that you're thinking. If you know you're thinking of what result you want, and then wait, how to wait is like what you're saying, you know, all the time, the planets, the astrology, everything, right? The time and place and the thought. That's exactly what we are. That's all we are is where we are in time and space and what we're thinking about. And then as far as the fasting, you know, I think he's alluding to like the sacrifice. Like, what are you willing to give up? Are you willing to sit in that time and space with that thought for a year? Can you do that? Can you train yourself to meditate to do that? That then you'll get these certain amount of results. If you're only willing to do it for 3 minutes, then you'll get a certain other run of results. You know, and
You
so
know,
that's how it looks. I look at it.
I like the fact that you brought up sacrifice, because in my experience, when you're at certain disadvantages in life, they're made up for by other things, you
Mm.
know. So like the way existence and reality works is that, let's say somebody might have a disability. um, okay, well that puts them at a disadvantage with the rest of the most of the population in certain areas, but that disability will make up for in other areas, that they will excel at. You know, life and reality has a way of substituting things for people. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think even you know, that's yeah, which you don't talk about that. I guess I would say when somebody does have a disability that makes them severely bad, I mean that almost teaches other people compassion and sympathy and empathy, because you know when they see somebody who can't walk and they can walk, and like you know, and this person's still trying to get out there and still do things, it's an inspiration. And it's also, you know, that person is probably, I mean, you know, not to say that they shouldn't, that people are going to be like, oh, I want to see that person succeed more than just somebody who appears healthy and like that. So I think it all balances out, you know. I mean, that's what the whole, you know.
In a way, you could say that everybody is learning something by being around a disabled person,
Mhm.
depending on if they're paying attention or not.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the spirit world will throw us different curveballs,
Mhm.
but it's up to us to pay attention and actually get it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll just keep getting the same kind of curveball thrown at us until we do get it. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like a famous thing of for insanity. You know, Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, and getting the same results, but still
Yeah.
doing it, you know, over and over. You know, like
You can say a lot of the
knowing that you're not
population
going to
is
get it.
insane. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was doing the job as a substance abuse counselor, that was one of the main things. Is that when it interrupts, you know, like it's almost like a banishment. It says if you're doing the same thing over and over and you're getting bad results, then do something else. Try something else. Try a whole new way, right? You know, like if you're
Yeah.
meeting the same kind of people for your intimate, you know, sexual things, and it's always a big thing and blowing up and everything. Maybe try to meet somebody totally different, you know, or don't even go into that, you know. Maybe just be celibate or something, you know. Because I mean, you see people get in these patterns, and it's almost like they can't help it because it's a force. It's like emotional. It's above their thinking, you know, and it goes above that, you know. And so people will repeat the same mistakes over and over because emotionally they're looking to like rebuild something that they probably lost as a child or something. It's coming from another place, you know.
Hmm.
So I dealt with that a lot with people. I mean, that's what addicts, you know, a lot of addicts uh, do. And I don't consider myself an addict so much, but I can see that trying to do the same thing over and over just because it does kind of feel good in the short term, maybe, or something like that. Like like drinking, for example. Like I like to drink from time to time, but it's like that's a short term thing. But in the long term, if I'm like sick, because I drink too
Well,
much.
if you're studying, and you're getting the same thing and not getting different results, change your study habits. You might want to change your environment. So I'll give an example. You brought up addiction. I'm a recovering addict myself. I used to be addicted to hard drugs back in the day, but it took me changing, you could say, change my environment. I had to cut off all my old friends. I
Mhm.
had to, and just change my habit of that in turn changed my habit of looking at things and seeing things differently, and then making, finding new epiphanies. And okay, well, I don't need that. I can do it this way. I can do it that way. Same thing with studying.
Mhm.
Maybe go somewhere else. Go to, if you're getting a lot of distractions at home, go to a library, go to a
Yeah,
park.
yeah.
Go to, and we also were talking before about, you can also ask your higher self, to, so that to show you ways that you can learn and absorb information, because you can try all you want to do things on your own, but your higher self is there for a purpose, and it's just waiting
Mhm.
for you to ask for help. And
Mhm.
you just got to make sure you're paying attention, and you'll be able to be shown different ways of how to study what I'm doing wrong, to absorb the information.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's great to like make it study like a little ritual, like even if you want to burn a candle or do some
Yeah.
incense, if you're in a place where you could do that, or go outside. Yeah, like you said, I mean, it's all awareness of what's going on. Like I mean, I have a hard time studying just like in my lair here sometimes, and I want to get out, go someplace else, get some, and I'll come up with like different books. I'll bring a few, like a whole backpack full of books, so I can like read different ones, because of me. I was diagnosed with ADHD, but I consider that more of just a different way of studying. So I read like several books at the same time, maybe I could have a book going in my ears that you know, I can multitask and I could get the information and layer it together. It wouldn't make sense to somebody else. A lot of times, other people that don't have ADHD like me, or even have it a different way, would like, you know, be like, that's just how do you do that, you know? Because you know, like,
In a way, for somebody who has ADD, I guess they could just Google how study habits for people who have ADD, and then they can probably just, or just talk to somebody who has ADD, maybe in a,
yeah,
whether it's at, friends they have who are in school or who just like to study in general, and just like, how do you guys get around it? Because there's always a way around it. There's nothing that's just set in stone. Oh, it's over. No, there's a way around everything.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Where there's a will, there's a way. As much as we hear it, that is very true. Now, you mentioned about burning a candle. One thing you could do, before you study, is you can just light a certain candle, depending on the color of, the frame of mind you want to be in, and just say an incantation before you light the candle, and that energy will be with you when you're studying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, and I've known people that actually have, wanted to evoke a certain, for example, the Roman gods or Greek gods. You know, like maybe some people would say Jupiter is more if it's more of a, like, say you're learning about money or something, or you're doing wealth type study and rituals, or studying to do these rituals. Jupiter is more of a good thing like that. If you want something that's more the law, you could say Saturn, or if it's something more dark, like what happens after you die, there's this Saturnian kind of energy. And then, you could go down in whatever ways. If you want to go to like, some people actually have like a Hermes Trismegistus, or Thoth, right? Which is like these ancient gods of learning that, so Aleister Crowley was big on Thoth.
Well, yeah, it can go more ways than just lighting a candle. You mentioned the planetary energies. You can invite certain planetary energies into your environment. You can also, wear different crystals on you, have different crystals around. You can change the color of your environment or color correspondences, but then again, that would kind of go in the same atmosphere as candles, lighting a different colored candle. There's so many different ways you can tweak your environment of learning and your way of looking at things.
Yeah.
Mhm. And another good thing is to just take breaks sometimes. Some people don't take breaks. You need to. I think that you can, if you find yourself just constantly not being able to absorb the information, take some time off. Go do something. Go, just do whatever. Go have some fun. Come back however much time you need, whether it's an hour or whether it's a few days. You know what I mean? We all need time to separate ourselves from time to time and come
Yeah,
back.
and you know what? You know what's really, and this is part of my chaos magic. I think. I mean, I think it's just it's a concept called synchronicity. Like that Carl Jung came up with it. So you'll start whatever I'm studying, I'll start seeing these things that come into, and it'll be like, oh, then I go down this whole other rabbit hole. So I was actually, I was getting into science again, because I'm going to be doing a little science thing with some people in my family. Maybe even I'll do more online. So about science and how magic and how it goes together, and magic could probably even be considered like psychological technology, something like that. So anyway, I'm looking at all this stuff, and then so I was like, I'm just studying matter. So you start with the protons, electrons, neutrons, and then what makes up the protons is going to quarks, and then I got away from the whole thing. I started studying quarks and like the nanotech kind of thing, and I found, and I kept seeing this thing, and I was like, is that my name? And it's like, there's like, you can look it up. It's funny. So the thing that keeps quarks together are called gluons. So it's like Gluon. They're kind of like, just like my name. And so I went down this whole rabbit hole, like studying gluons, which are, I mean, I guess it's like gluons just kind of keep these quarks together to keep the proton. They're not even sure how it's like a quantum level, it's hard to see it. I guess they're trying to like, I just went down this whole thing. I don't want to get into it all now, but yeah, that's just the kind of things I see. I'll see that. I'll go, oh, that sounds just like my name. It's almost like someone's calling me. And I go down this whole thing of studying these subatomic particles, which actually, come out to things in my life, or things in my study of magic, and how I can explain it to different people. Because I think we are going down to these levels that we don't understand. And that's part of the reason, they would use stuff like, like these things that it's hard to understand, like all the different writing and stuff like I was saying the other day. A lot of this stuff, the Nokian stuff and different things like that. It's like to suspend disbelief. A lot of it's just like, kind of how we have we don't really understand the technology between our cell phones, but we still do make videos on them and still know how to operate them. We don't understand the technology between this, so we don't understand, how to pronounce we don't think we know maybe pronounce certain sacred words or something like that. But if you go through all that to suspend disbelief enough, then people will say, well, your words, your talismans have power. That's that's how I look at it sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, good point made. Another thing that you can do is just maybe it helps you to have somebody to study with, or find a certain teacher. There's having a mentor, or just somebody that you click with to study with, like me and you, we have good chemistry.
Oh yeah.
If we were to study together, I think that we would be able to pick up a lot more than, let's say, someone locally that I know, somewhat,
Yeah.
that I'm friends with. But sometimes different people's energy will click, and then, you're able to retain information better that way, or just finding a mentor.
I mean, one idea, and I don't know, if either one of us can commit to this or whatever, but I mean, what sometimes people are doing is they're doing lives, and you could do like 6 people or whatever, and people are just kind of studying live. I mean, they do it on TikTok. You could do it on Facebook too, I think, Instagram. So you could do a live and like see and then I think it saves. I mean, it'll save for like 30 days, or you have to put in a certain thing so people could rewatch it. It's like, but it's live content. So that might be a good way to like form a study group. I don't know if we're in the right time and place right now, but I mean, I've always wanted to do that. I've seen people doing it on TikTok, but I've kind of got away from TikTok. I was pretty famous there, and it just gets.
That's actually a good idea. Like, how sometimes we do study videos on certain books. Like Magick, there's 3 or 4 of us, discussing the same book.
Yeah.
I think that would really.
Or people could read for a section of it and discuss what they think that means.
Not too many people though, because then it's just you get people that are not on the same page.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. I think people drop off, naturally. They'll go in. I mean, you could have up to 6 people, I think, on TikTok or even on Facebook. I think I don't know, but anyway, you have like these different things, and then people will either be quiet or they'll just drop off. They'll just lose interest because they're just it's above their head. Usually, people don't be like, oh, you got to slow down to. It's more like that's the thing is it would be like different groups, like a depth group, and then like it'd be great to like sorting people out, because people, if it's beginners and then like there's one person who just wants to teach beginners, because I mean that not everybody likes to do that, but I kind of like to do that, to a certain degree. So it would need a little bit of guidance, a little bit of tweaking, but I think it could, like I'm thinking of doing like courses on this stuff too, like they have these mini courses that people selling and things like that. So like I think the stuff we're doing on Enochian is like pretty interesting, and doing it in more of a practical way. Which at this in our postmodern world, I think a lot of this stuff, like I said, it's all to suspend disbelief. So a lot of this stuff, this background, like the old Goetia and what Aleister Crowley did, and all. I mean, that's like 100 years ago. So you could learn about it and learn from it, but whatever people do modernly is never going to be like whatever people did, like with in the 15th century or even in the 1920s or 30s when Aleister Crowley was doing it. So even the 1960s is a world away from now. I mean,
doing things now, like say it's a little more straight up and in your face. Whereas the way people did things, let's say 100 years ago, there could be a lot of lore surrounding it. Like, well, did you know this? And he actually did this and this and that. Like, okay, well, but now everything is just available. Like, you couldn't just Aleister Crowley couldn't just go live and just talk about stuff. You know what I mean? But now you can. So in a way that kind of helps. But
well, I mean, I think that's why we're in a whole different world with all this stuff, and it's like in the past, as we get more and more, for lack of a better word, I guess like postmodern or more techno savvy, I think people lose the fear of superstition or something like that. You know, like, oh, if you mess around, there's going to be like a black, you know, I mean, if some black form comes at you, then, you know, you're hallucinating, or, you know, maybe you got other problems, but it's probably not because you just like read a book or said a few words or whatever, you know. I don't know. That's how I look at it. But I mean, I guess some people still maybe, because I mean, I'm like pretty much not, you know, I have different books I've been studying, like doing sounding different words as meditations and God sounds and Egyptian, and I mean, I think it's a healthy thing to do. But some people might think, well, what are you introducing here? You know, I've heard people say when they do a certain incantation, like if they are trying to pronounce Babylonian words, they see a Babylonian god or something. You know.
Well, words do have power.
Yeah.
And like if you're trying to, you know, evoke or invoke a spirit, you will feel a change in the environment, no doubt. And you know, you may even just see things move by themselves, or you hear footsteps, you know what I mean? Like stuff that physically that happens around you, knowing that spirit's around, you know, or sometimes it's just a change in environment. You know, you can just feel the shift in energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most of the time, that stuff, I mean, we naturally banish all the time, though, because with like laughter or whatever, you know, I mean, usually it's laughter, right? I mean, laughter is just a banishment. That's why we laugh when somebody says something like uncomfortable. We laugh when somebody, I mean, basically, that's why we laugh when people are falling down. It's like that because we're cruel, but it's like, oh, it's like, I'm laughing that away. I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to slip and look like a fool falling down, right? We're like, ha, 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 you know, no, not me, not me. That's basically when you're laughing, you're saying, not me, not me. I don't want it. I don't want it. You know, it's like a banishing, you know. So most people do that. I think especially modernly, you know, in the past, you know, with the whole people believing more in witchcraft and being more religious in ways where they think that, you know, I mean, maybe there is some stuff behind that stuff, you know, but I think mostly if people keep you know their own play, you know, their own life intact, I don't think other people can you know, really like put things on them or whatever, you know, like I mean, how much do you believe in that, like, you know, somebody can actually put a hex or something, and you know, like I mean, I haven't personally receiving it kind of has to believe it. That's what some people believe, you know. So I know it's kind of off subject, but I
I
mean, I'm
think it
curious.
also depends on how mentally strong people are. You know,
Yeah.
if somebody's not a mentally strong person and they're very weak, I think maybe a hex would be something a little more easier to put on somebody, whereas somebody who's very strong-willed and someone who can focus a lot would be a harder target to hit. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then it almost goes to like, okay, so if somebody puts like a offending meme or something, or somehow gets somebody upset online, right? And that kind of ruins that person's day because they're going on and on, and they get triggered and everything. Is that like a hex? That's kind of like trolling is like a hex. And there's like, you know, weaponized shit posting. You know, all these are like in
Well,
chaos
you
magic. They're
mentioned about
considered
the
like insect
banishing,
shit.
about the laughing and the banishing. I mean, someone can say, "Oh, I put a hex on you. Oh, did you hear so and so put a hex on you?" Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever, man. And then you just kind of just focus on what you were doing before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you just mentioned about the banishment.
Yeah. Well, most of the time it's like that. I think mostly people just laugh and I mean, and you see that with speakers all the time. You know, they usually say some little joke to banish it. You know, or if they have a hard question, more intelligent speakers will like make some joke about it, and then everybody laughs and they forget about the whole thing. You know.
I think one key in that is to distract the other person. So you can, you know, maybe you can work with an entity to set circumstances in that person's life to distract them and get
Yeah.
them to focus on something else. And then maybe they would be an easier target.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but the banishing with laughter, I think that's a thing that if people see that, I mean, there's different ways to banish, but I think the laughter and like I guess laughter and like maybe a serious look. I mean, there's different ways that people. I mean, because going into this studying, I was doing a big study on the different ideas of communication and how they go to the numbers, right? So like zero would be silence, which I think is probably the most powerful form of communication. It's just silent because it's part of everything because it's silence between the, you know, and then this number one would be nonverbal, like what I'm saying, like laughing, crying, you know, just giving looks, whatever, you know. I mean, that's most of our thing. I mean, the words that we say usually don't even matter. It's just the tone and the text and the way that we say it. If we say it in a snippy way or whatever, you know. So that's like
Yeah.
mostly it's all nonverbal. It's only at one, and then two I think is getting into more like communication, which is like that would be So I think it goes all the way down to where it's just like people are just saying words down to different levels where people are just saying different languages and you can't understand them, where I can't understand because there's no sounds, so I'm trying to work out like a scale of this. So that's part of the studying of this, is the different verbal communication, and then after verbal would go like written communication. There's like all these different ways of communicating, but I mean the lower ones of either being silent or laughing or crying or
Well,
just like saying like whatever, like that's a
one
big
thing,
thing.
yeah, no doubt. One thing you got to keep in mind is that certain logos of companies are actually meant to be sigils to put people in a certain state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, people are having spells cast on them out in public. Let's say they go downtown, walk down the street, they're seeing all these different logos, which a lot of them, like I said, are meant to be, sigils to, get people to focus a certain way, or to get them to be vulnerable, to give them subconscious plants, plants in their subconscious. What do you think about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, they even call it casting, right? Like newscasting, broadcasting, right? I mean, they're casting spells. And then I mean, a lot of these things too. I mean, you look at like spelling and spells. I mean, right? Like the spelling, grammar and glamour. So I mean, it's basically that's what and you could see in the old way back to someone who people could barely write, like in the 1500s or whatever, where the average peasant didn't write. If somebody knew how to write, they probably would be like, if you write something down, it'll happen to that person. Like that's the spell, right? I mean, just writing it down back then, because people couldn't write, So you can see how that was like probably just writing, Jack will have a bad cow or something. His livestock will die. They found that was probably enough to burn somebody at the stake. He wrote down a bad note about his neighbor, right? I mean, that's witchcraft.
That is true. You can write things into your life. That is.
I mean, I think there is something into that, and you see how they use the exact same things for spelling, grammar, glamour. You can see it is what it is. Writing down and communication is spells. It is spells, like you said. I mean, if somebody watches a bad newscast or even a bad video about them or something, and it ruins their day, that is a spell that was cast on them. With technology, but. I mean, is it the same if somebody just said, I'm mentally making this person do that and I have no way of proving it, I messed his day up, but now I went online and told him off or whatever, did something I knew would piss him off, and then, I mean, it's almost the same. We're almost at the point now where we could intentionally just do spells, like say, I'm just gonna send this guy a bad message.
If you want to, speaking of like spell matter, spells like in that, in that context, music is a spell. Like take back to the subject of studying. If sometimes certain music will put you in the mood in a mental state to absorb more information.
Yeah, for sure.
So I work better with instrumental, chill, music. That'll help me absorb and concentrate. Some people like loud screamo music. That helps them. It all depends on the person. You can experiment.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's another thing of the music. I mean, that's one of the most powerful communications too, is music. I mean, because like I go dancing. I just went dancing last night. Dancing has a certain music I need. When I'm in the car, I usually listen to metal. So like to get myself going and stuff. And when I'm doing like when I do rides for people, I have to put it a little bit more like 80s. Like something more like like this, not too like metal, unless I can read the person and say, oh, this guy probably likes metal, because he's got long hair or something. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a big thing. I mean, what I'm learning from just doing the job of driving people around, like for Lyft and stuff, is like, yeah, music bonds people. If somebody who likes the song I'm playing, it's like, that's it. We're like, we have a good ride, we have a good mood. Everything's set, It's almost like you trust the person right away because you like the same thing, It's very, very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's very powerful to share music tastes with different people and playlists and stuff like that. And,
It is.
It's just a really good thing to do. Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's the same thing with advertising. You know, you watch a commercial, there's certain music playing, you know, which is meant to, again, not only with the logo, but the music to put them in a certain state, you know.
Yeah.
So
Oh, it's definitely there's definitely some stuff behind that. I think, you know. I mean, I think that even like the printing on the dollar bill. I mean, that's why I got the all-seeing eye tattoo. You know, I just thought it's, you know, beyond anything of the Freemasons and all that. It's like it's on the dollar bill. So I mean, people can't accuse me of being some oddball occultist. I mean, like, you use a dollar bill every day, right? There it is, right? I mean, like,
yeah,
it's not like I'm, you know, it's like, oh, you're in the Illuminati or whatever. It's like, no, I mean, whoever's using that dollar is using that symbol for value. So then that's magic,
everybody
right?
passes it around. So
Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, and people don't really question it that much. They're just like, well, that's what it is, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, right on.
But it's really a talisman, you know. I mean, I think that's money is a talisman. I mean, we don't understand what's behind it. We suspend disbelief, and like that's why we believe in it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, that's a nice little chat we had about study. Hopefully, those watching, that helps you guys, you know, study and like I said, it's a big part of being a magician, being a spiritual person in general, being an occultist. We're always looking to absorb new information, you know, and yeah. So anyone who's watching, you know, you can check out Guion's links below in the video description. Guillotine Productions. And everyone who's watching, like and subscribe to Dark Sorcery.
Right.